Christopher Spera, and this is the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 137. You made your Memoji do what? Recorded live. Thank you. Recorded live Sunday, June 29th, 2025, live from iTechGear Central. As I said, I'm Christopher Spera, the editor-in-chief here at the iTechGear.org. Joining us today, oh man, he's back from the March. It was mammoth. And he is also an editor here at iTechGear.org and is the former contributing writer at Gear Diary. And, of course, the current host of the Linux Ling Tech Show and living in the Retro Arcade podcast, Brother Joe McLaughlin. How are you, sir?
I am just ducky.
Are you all marched out?
I had a good, I got up and went for a 3-mile ruck this morning, so no.
That's good.
So, I feel it's amazing. I feel better after 20 miles than I did after 11 the first time I did it. I guess that means I'm getting better. I don't know, but I know that I got to do this all over again in just 34 days.
Well, there you go.
And then get on an airplane to go to Texas.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
That's the hard part. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
And I actually probably will.
Yeah.
It's like I'm gonna be like to the mission leader. Can you please make it not a 6 a.m. flight, please?
There you go.
Thank
and
you.
of course, those dulcet tones, the former editor over, the former editor, contributing editor at Gear Diary, editor here at iTechGear.org, and of course, also the late great Pocket now, brief silence. Mr. Chris Gavula, how are you, sir?
I'm good, but Joel can travel with his new digital passport.
That's true.
Never. I don't even have one anymore.
We'll be talking about that soon.
We'll be talking about that a little bit later. That's an interesting kind of story. Unfortunately, Mr. Larry McJunkin is out on family leave, going to see the fam, and he will be missed during this week's
Why did
wonderful.
we let him leave again? I'm trying to remember. Why did we give him
escaped.
permission to go?
You stopped watching him.
I know. I'm sorry.
It was your turn.
I didn't think it was my turn. I thought it was your turn. But okay.
See, and this is where the problems come in. But
this is where we have a problem. Gotcha.
This is true. You know what? But you know, they're. I don't know if you want to call them problems or guesstimations or whatever. But one of the things that Mr. Larry McJunkin sent us before he left, and we went ahead and I gave you the story, which is just absolutely fabulous. There is apparently a way to sort of, figure out the next iOS release date, which of course is iOS 26. So when is this supposed to happen?
Well, it's in September, as always.
Well, you try to remember those times.
Try to remember the times in September. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Unfortunately, hopefully our audience is as old as we are, or they're not going to understand that reference.
No, they won't.
It's an old song reference.
Old song.
Very old. It's even old. It was even old when I was young.
Yes, I remember it well.
Yes, I remember it well. Yeah, there we go. But having said that, they basically took the previous iOS release dates and they kind of make an estimate and it always seems to happen, on a Monday.
Estimate, yeah.
So they take a guesstimate as to when it's going to be. So, and it's interesting to watch how they kind of referred to this. So they're saying iOS 18 was released on September 16th, which was of 2024, which was a Monday. 17 was back on September 18th. 16 is back on the right. It was on the 12th. So
of 22.
So their estimate is mid-September. I'm like, really, kids?
Yeah.
We could have guessed that without that.
It's like saying the Super Bowl is going to happen in February.
Yeah, exactly.
The beginning of February, yes.
But
thank you.
Having said that, it's probably for our listening audience, the developer betas, they're not beta 2. That's their cycle right now for the developer betas.
That is true.
And we still expect the first public beta to happen sometime in July.
And actually, originally the schedule was they would release beta 2 and then for the developer betas, and I thought almost at the same time. It may be a week in terms of.
To be honest with you,
I thought it was supposed to be almost identical. They were supposed to release at the same time.
I think that happens with the dot releases, the minor dot releases. I've never seen it happen that way with the major releases. When you have a new major release, I thought they've always gone 3 or 4 in before they did a public beta on it, because there's usually a lot to shake out in a major update like this.
And I'm shaking.
And 2, I will be honest with you, beta 2's been definitely better than beta 1. They did
I
clean
would,
up
and
some
I would
stuff.
hope so.
But there's still a few things out there that people are running into,
Well,
and that's gonna happen all the way till release.
I still can't get the Apple Remote program on my phone to
Yeah,
turn
I haven't had any
on
trouble with it.
on my Apple TV. It just won't do it.
Well,
It'll
we
control
were
the Apple
talking,
TV after the Apple TV is on, but it won't turn the bloody thing on.
Right.
It'll turn it off, but it won't turn it on.
We were talking with Mr. Larry, Mr. McJunkin.
Try that again.
Deliberately trip that around. No, I'm deliberately twisting that around. And we were talking with him earlier this week about some things that he was running into with the iPad OS release.
Right.
And he was complaining about the search settings, search field inside of the settings app. And he found out that really it was based on an assistive thing that he had turned on to change the visuals a little bit and make them less transparent. And that was creating the visual object that was in his way
that he was seeing.
Yeah. So there's little things like that we're going to run into probably all the way till final release. But
well, sure.
But I will say this much: for a major release, this iOS 26, iPad 26, Mac OS 26, all these have actually been relatively stable for me anyway in my use. So it's interesting to see.
And mine as well. To be very, very honest, I'm running it on my main iPhone. All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The iOS 26, and it's more than usable.
Right. I haven't found any. I mean, I found some springboard resets every now and then, but nothing that could maybe lose my work. Nothing that made me dysfunctional in any real way.
The only problem I've had is with the Apple Remote, and that's it. Which
I have one app. I have one restaurant app that when you launch it, you bring some title splash screen, and then it's supposed to go to where you can order or whatever else you want to do.
Right.
It takes like 2 minutes to get to that page once you hit the splash screen. It's the only app, and I'm assuming it's just something that they wrote incorrectly in the app that needs to be cleaned up. But I expect individual apps to be off, during betas. I expect that to happen.
And I would expect that as well. I would not. It's not going to be perfect.
I'm sure it'll be fixed soon enough. The problem you're running into will be fixed at some point soon enough.
Sure.
Again, we have to say it. We say it over and over, but kids, this is a beta. And we'll say it again, even when we get to the public betas. They're betas. If you want perfection, don't download a beta.
Yeah. If you can't afford a glitch on your iPhone, this is not the time for you to be running this.
Exactly right.
That's why I don't load it.
So we're in dev betas now. We expect public betas next month, and then we expect the final release sometime around mid-September.
Right.
There you go.
Right.
That sums it up.
About.
Just about.
And one of the things that's supposed to be interesting, that's supposed to be coming later on this year, and will be part of iOS 26 as a result, is digital IDs, which I think is interesting. Now, what this is it's more than just your state driver's license. This is actually your U.S. passport if you've got one. All right. If you have a U.S. passport, you'll be able to put a digital ID or your quote unquote, I don't want to say copy of your passport, but you'll be able to go ahead and have a digital ID, national ID on your iPhone. All right. This will get you this ID will be good enough and legal for you to travel domestically with it without having a real ID driver's license or without having your actual passport. But if you want to travel internationally, you still got to have the card or the book.
So when you have a passport, when you get a passport, you can get just the passport book, which is the traditional thing that you always see pictures of if you don't have one. And you use that for international travel or even domestic travel. You can use it in place of your real ID if you don't want to have a real ID yet. So you can do that for now. But you can also order at that time a passport card. And for those of us who live in states that border like Canada or Mexico, you can use that instead of a passport
card,
book.
Yeah, that card.
And so this effectively is like having the passport card. It's not the same as having the book. It's like having the card. So you can use it for flying domestically, but you can't use it for anything international.
That's it. You can't. If you do in fact live in those border states, you cannot use it to cross the border.
No, you cannot.
You cannot.
And that's another limitation of it. Not yet. At some point they may, but not today.
All right. But, well, they may let you do that. But if you want to, and I think the article puts it this way, if you want to hop on a flight to Istanbul or some other international destination,
Mhm.
you can't use it for that.
Can't use it for that yet.
All right. If you want to use just the card, the actual physical card, you can do that with Canada. You can do that with Mexico,
I
and
think
and
so. Yeah.
maybe a few other countries that we may have agreements with for something like that. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to need the book if you want to
Yep.
fly internationally. Period.
I agree.
You're going to need the book. So this will be great for if you don't want to pull out the wallet and search for the real ID. Flash the phone.
But
You've got your
to be
boarding
fair,
pass in there already, so you're all set.
this isn't akin with people having their state driver's licenses in there for the states that support that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not comfortable with that, you're not going to be comfortable with this either.
Oh, no,
so it's
not
just
at
a
all.
thing.
Not
And that's
at all.
me. I'm not comfortable with any of that, mostly because there's things that, what if I need to show my license and my phone's dead?
That's a problem. That's a problem. If
Yeah.
you don't have any of the cards and your phone is dead, you're screwed.
I'll be honest with you. I mean, having flown a lot in the last few years, I found everybody's like, oh, well, we use digital boarding passes. We'll do this. I still insist on a printed boarding pass as well. Now, even if I don't have to pull it out, I want it there. So I would be the same way with this. Even if I chose to use the digital version of these, I'm like Joel. I would at least have a paper copy somewhere that I can get to quickly if I had to get to it.
Right.
I'd have my real one somewhere.
Right.
But now, I can understand too, for people who are concerned about those things getting stolen, you could theoretically put them away a little more securely and not have to have them.
You could.
Out
in your freaking wallet, in a freaking pocket.
Yeah. Well, and I keep mine in RFID cases and all that kind of stuff to protect them.
The trend I do not understand, I finally convinced my wife to go away from it, was the ones who buy the iPhone cases with the freaking ID flap on the back.
I don't get that either. I don't either.
Because she has lost her debit card.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me go ahead though and just clear up a couple of things. This is not currently in either the beta 1 or the beta 2 developer beta. It is likely not going to be part of the public beta arriving in early July. This is something that's going to probably hit the streets in a iOS 26.1 or .2 later on this year. I wouldn't expect it anytime soon. All right, and you will you will probably have to go through the same kind of process that you do if you've already got like a state driver's license on your phone. You will probably need to go through the same kind of process to get that driver's license on your phone as you would to put the digital ID on your phone.
I think that's a good point, because the reality is putting these things on your devices. The reason it's not available right away is there's a lot of legal hoops they have to go through to make this happen. Very true. So it takes a while. It's not a technical issue as much as it's a legal issue.
It's right. It's more of a is your state ready
to support it? Yeah.
And thinking about the state of Illinois. That's why I'm laughing.
Oh, please. You
because
should try the state of Alabama.
Illinois is supposed to be one of those states that's getting a digital driver's license.
At some point.
At some point. They announced it I think in 22 or 23 that it was coming, and it was supposed to be like this year or the year after that it was going to hit. I don't know what happening anytime soon.
It took in Alabama, it took us like 10 years beyond everybody else to even be able to register for things on a web, let alone not use paper and spend half your day in the office shuffling paper with them. So I don't think that state will ever get it, quite honestly. Right.
Well,
I'd be surprised. So
there are only a few states right now that even have this implemented. All right.
True.
Arizona, California, Colorado, Georgia, Hawaii, Iowa, Maryland, New Mexico, and Ohio are the ones that have it implemented.
And I don't think Ohio's fully implemented yet. I think they're still working on it. I could be wrong on that though.
Well,
they're close. They're close if they're not there yet. Are you, Joe? Have you heard?
Could not tell you, could not care, because I said, I don't want to.
And folks, Joel is in Ohio, so if anybody would know, it'd be him.
Right. So I don't want to toy with it.
Right.
Just
but at this point, what I'm stating is, that there are 50 states. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 out of 50. All right. You're below what, 20% of the entire. 10% of the entire.
Considering the way government usually moves, I think this is pretty good.
It's true. you know, of the whole
Just saying.
shooting match here. So I don't see it happening anytime soon. I don't see it hitting anywhere.
Yeah,
And
I'm
then
with
there's
you.
going to be a lot of folks that are concerned about the cultural and potentially religious implications of this. I wouldn't doubt some of those folks having a
Yeah.
great deal
Oh,
of
it's always a
concern
thing.
about this stuff. So we'll have
I
to wait
get
and
you.
see how things go. But the other another interesting thing though happening right about now, and I saw this and I went, this could be a help. Um, Apple is apparently considering the acquisition of Perplexity AI, which would be its biggest acquisition ever. Um,
Ever.
yeah. So, so,
Mhm.
um, this so Perplexity AI is a company that's developed an AI driven search engine and chatbot. And as everybody knows, Apple Intelligence is supposed to have an AI driven search engine built into it. That's supposed to be kind of sort of what Siri's supposed to
Yeah.
do. All right. And since you can also type to Siri, you can with a double tap on the bottom of the screen, it'll bring up a highlighted or rainbow outlined
You're
keyboard.
right.
All right, and search box, so that you can type a query to Siri if you can't speak to it. You're in a crowded room or something. And uh, this acquisition would add a lot to Siri at this point. Um,
Mhm.
it's Apple Intelligence is anything but right now.
Well, but here's the thing I find
And it
interesting.
needs some help.
I think, I mean, I think it's interesting that they're thinking about acquiring one of these firms. I'm not sure Perplexity is the best one. It might be a good fit for them, but when you look at accuracy, they're actually not the highest up there in terms of accuracy at all.
No,
There was actually a thing I watched on YouTube. The
yeah,
channel Mister Who's the Boss. He did a comparison of the four biggies.
right.
Mhm.
And Perplexity did not do that well in the comparison. Neither did Gemini, come to think of it. Actually, ones that did the best were, strangely enough, the Grok and the Chat GPT did the best. Got the
Well,
most different types of inquiries correct. So I'm wondering if Apple does acquire this, is this the best way for them to go? Don't know.
well,
And maybe they can help shore up the
it's
stuff that isn't good in it. I
sure,
don't know.
sure.
There's always
It's
that
thought that
too.
this might be a decent move for Apple
It might be
simply because the government may force them to end their relationship
with
for search engine
Google.
in
Yeah.
iOS and iPad OS with
Yeah.
Google, right? And with Perplexity, it could help them move things forward
Well,
as
but my
far
concern is
as
if they
an
give,
AI
but
search engine is concerned, because right now Siri and Apple Intelligence sucks.
yes and no. But if they go with Perplexity and Perplexity turns out not to be a great solution, then Apple's just compounded their problem. So it's hard
How
to know.
so?
I mean,
How so?
and
Compounded how?
if you pick a search and AI choice that doesn't make good decisions and doesn't make good choices, and you've
Hmm.
added it to a solution that already has problems making AI search, how have you improved your situation? You've just given it more bad answers.
Well, it
Is all
says
you've done.
you. Says
So
you.
I think it would be better if you were able to partner with somebody who could give you solid results, or at least more solid results, and maybe Perplexity will get there. Maybe they again, it's always about the type of choices you make when you're doing your testing,
Right.
and
Well,
but right now I have some concerns. We'll see.
yeah, yeah,
I
we
think they need to do
will.
something.
If a deal is reached, though, I mean, it's going to be a big one. All right.
Yeah, yeah,
Perplexity is currently valued at about 14 billion with a B dollars. All right. Which is about more than just over three times as much as their other most significant deal back in 2014. They picked up Beats for
yeah.
$3 billion. All
Yeah.
right. So, that's more than
This would be
four
more.
times. It's more than four times that value.
This
So,
would be more. Yeah,
you know,
almost, Chris. You have to go straight with. There you go.
thank you. And there we go. Anyway, yeah. So
Mhm.
we'll see how it all we'll see how it all goes, but I bet you this one will go through. I bet you this one will go through, but that's just me.
Guys, we're going to have to get off video when we're doing these things. I'm
I
telling
know.
you what.
I know. You
Our
keep
poor
on doing
listeners
this stuff.
can't. We're so mean to each other
honest to
on
God,
video.
I mean, you're busy playing with the reactions. You're gonna go blind, and then you're gonna be doing this stuff with Memojis next. So there you go.
That's right. That's right. Oh dear.
Anyway,
Okay.
so the last story that I've got for us in our Apple segment is related to DJI, which is I mean, they are the premier drone maker.
They are.
Photography drone maker in the world. All right. Because I don't know that there's anybody else. All right. But they said that they remain committed to the U.S. Market, but the shelves are empty.
In some places.
In most places. It's not just one place, but yeah.
The thing is I can go direct to Amazon right now and order one right now from Amazon from their store directly. I know Micro Center has been getting low stock of them in the store. I get them,
and supposedly Best Buy's empty
or
as well.
none. Right. So I think some of this is, I don't know how. I mean, it's a complicated thing.
Yeah, it really is.
Some of it is with the tariffs. Some of it is with the potential that there still might be a ban on their drones, on Chinese-made products, very similar to the TikTok ban. And there's significant concerns for security for some people, not for me. I'm like, I look at it and I think, well, in order for China to store all the stuff that your drone does and video, I mean, the storage things would be tremendously huge.
Well,
it would.
It would, but there's
Right.
got to be. I mean, AI development is such that, or even machine learning. There can be things on your videos that if it hits the algorithm, that it gets flagged and saved. Who knows? And that's even if there is something like that.
And I don't think there is, because I think it's because they have no financial benefit to make people scared of their drones. They want people to buy the drones, so they make the money from selling the drones. They don't care. I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't a potential for data.
True.
Well, you don't know if they're being pressured by their own government or not. You don't know.
True.
None of us do.
That's very, very true. The problem that I see, though, if DJI is going to forego the U.S. market because of a potential ban or whatever, all right? Even though they said, if the ban did take place or kick in, that they would continue to sell existing stock in the U.S. until it ran out. There's nobody else, though, is my point, right? There's why isn't somebody else or even a U.S. company stepping up to fill the gap?
I'm a bit surprised they haven't, because it's a market that has value.
Well, again, it would
maybe they can't make it that inexpensively. I don't know. I don't know what the story is.
I don't know either. What really blows my mind, though, is that there's nobody's jumping up or jumping in to fill the gap.
Right.
So I don't know if it's because all the manufacturing of those kinds of things is in China, or if could
be,
or what. I don't know.
It's certainly interesting, but okay. So, anyways, for now, it may be challenging to get one on and off, as the case may be. It's hard to know.
And some of the prices for those things are going to be,
well, and DJI's other products, they have cameras and some other products that their prices have already jumped quite a lot.
They have
those things. It might be indicative of what's going on, and they might end up pricing themselves out of the market altogether here. Who knows?
They could. And not only that, I mean, if you've got a problem with any of your equipment, I mean, they're saying that it may take 60 to 90 days for repairs. All right.
Yeah, that's what they're hearing. True.
Their back-to-back price hikes took the popular Osmo Pocket 3 camera from like $520 to $800.
Yeah.
So
it's a jump, but you got to be careful with those numbers too, because again, we can say, oh, tariffs, but a lot of people are being anticipatory.
Yes,
so
correct.
So you have to be very careful about that when you say that.
because a lot of the tariffs aren't even totally in effect yet.
Exactly, and that's what
exactly.
So there's two pieces of that. One is not all the tariffs are in effect.
Nope.
Some are not. That's to be
Correct.
fair. But we're talking about in cases where the opposite was true, or the prices haven't gone up yet. It's usually because they bought ahead of time to keep them from going up yet, and you won't see anything till July, maybe even August in some cases.
Right.
So we don't know what we're going to see with any of this yet. We really don't know what we don't know yet.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
So here we go.
Yeah, here we go. And now, truly, really, the last story in the Apple segment. And this one, I kind of,
I don't know.
This one, this is. I'm just so tired of him.
It's the same old, same old. I'm getting exhausted listening to this guy.
Tim Sweeney just needs to shut up. I am sick and tired of his. Slamming of Apple and their unlawful.
So we're talking about Tim Sweeney at Epic Games, all back to the old lawsuit. They were unhappy that Apple was taking a cut of in-app game purchases. And we've said this before, and the article that we're linking here kind of summarizes it the same way. Look, Apple built the infrastructure that you're using for this stuff, and you've benefited from that infrastructure. Why do you think they're not entitled to anything? And that's kind of the summary we've all taken.
Right. No, if Tim Sweeney had his way, he would be able to use the Apple App Store and then not pay them for the privilege of
not pay them
being on the platform.
So tell me, if I'm a software developer, a game developer, like they are,
yep,
why should I be entitled to have Apple present my game to the world?
Yep,
for nothing, and offer it for free, and then I get all the cut for all the in-app purchases. And Apple, meanwhile, has gotten zero for having hosted this app.
It's still required to host,
and it's still required to host it. So how is that appropriate? I'm missing something here. How is that any of that appropriate?
That's something you're missing is, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. All right.
Yeah, there you go.
Effectively, I mean, you're using their platform. You're getting all the benefit of the platform. Why shouldn't you pay for it?
So what led to this particular article is Apple has made a round of changes to the way their App Store works again, in trying to comply with the EU's requirements, mostly in this case.
Right.
And basically, Tim Sweeney is complaining that, once again, he's not happy with the results, basically, is what he's saying. Mm-hmm. He thinks that Apple is acting inappropriately again. And again, I don't think the EU judgment was correct in the first place. I think it misses a couple of key points, but
I agree.
But having said that, and Apple is appealing them again, which is not a surprise. But in the meantime, they've done these things to at least, I think that what they've done is try to comply as best they can. But the reference is that this is malicious compliance, where they're really kind of dragging their feet, which they probably are. And with all the lawsuits that are in place here, I'm not surprised.
Well, first of all, I'm surprised that Apple is still putting up with it.
Yeah.
The
funny thing is they could buy
they've been ganged up on
right?
Well, they've been ganged up on over the last 5 or so years, right? From not only from Epic,
it's been a bit of a dog pile, hasn't it?
But from the EU as well, and not only the EU, the Union, but a few individual countries within the Union as well. So
separately, yeah, true.
Why?
Where are we? Yeah, I don't know what the
Why keep the platform alive?
Well, it's funny. They operate in many, many, many countries around the world.
Yep.
I mean, they're constantly fighting lawsuits in these different countries about how they built this or didn't build this. And I'm thinking, if I was Apple, I would just I'd get to the point where I just say, "F you, I'm not doing business in your country anymore," because they can afford to do that. They can afford to cut some.
When you're a $3 trillion company, you can do a lot.
You can cut some of these folks out of the mix if you're not happy with it. If they're not a big part of your income, then why worry about it? I guess I find it maddening.
Well,
this inconsistency. And I would argue, by the way, I would argue the same thing for Android and Google developers as well, who aren't getting hit as hard. And the only reason is because that market's more fractured. It's not a singular market. It's a harder target.
It is a harder target. There's more than one Android developer. There's more than one
more than one app store.
Right.
But
it's interesting though. I mean, Apple is being squeezed not only by the EU and some individual countries within the Union. All right.
They are.
The state of California is also jumping on that dog pile as well.
They are.
And it really kind of blows my mind as to why I mean, what do they do? They smell blood in the water? It has to be that.
It has to be, yeah, because and that's what I think happens here. If one person's even so partially successful that everybody else says, "Hey, we'll get on the bandwagon," and something about that just doesn't seem right. There's got to be a better way to approach this crap. That's more appropriate.
There should not only should there be an appropriate, but there needs to be an equitable compromise that is reached. Where nobody is happy, but everybody gets something.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know.
I don't get it.
I'm tired of Tim Sweeney. All right.
I'm getting tired of Tim
truly am.
Sweeney.
I am tired of Tim Sweeney and the level.
Do either of you guys actually use any of their games or know anybody in your family that uses their games?
No.
Chris, you might.
My granddaughter and my boys play Fortnite. All right. I don't know how much, if anything, they buy. All right. Out of the store. I know that they stopped playing Fortnite for a while and moved on to something else, right?
Okay.
Whether it was, the Xbox title that's similar to it, or whether it's another title on the same store, I don't know. But I will tell you that it is really annoying that nothing seems to satisfy this guy.
No, and that's what I'm thinking too.
I just don't think that he's going to be happy with anything that happens.
Well, anything
he
short
gets
of
all the
him
shackles all the time.
Unless he gets everything all the time. Yeah, anything else he'll think he's getting screwed somehow, and that's just not the case. Again, now you could argue, and we could make it, and we've said this before, that the percentage is too high or too low. You can make this argument. I understand this. I could push either way actually on it and make an argument either way. But the reality is there should be something. I can't understand why
there needs to be some
nothing.
level of Apple needs to get a piece of the pie. Don't you
or
think?
Something.
All right.
I think
they need to get a piece of the pie. I don't know how big or how small that slice should be, but they need to get a piece of the pie. I don't understand why this guy is complaining about why he doesn't want to allow the platform owner to get their cut.
Right. They built the infrastructure. Why? I go back and I'll say one last kind of thing here is that we all remember 100+ years ago when everybody sued AT&T to break it up when they had built essentially what was our telco infrastructure at the time, and or their components built that infrastructure. And yes, they were at that time. They really were a monopoly. That's true.
Well, yes, of course they were. Yes, of course, and they didn't deny that they
built the infrastructure. But they built that infrastructure.
They did.
So should they not have been compensated for that infrastructure? Even if you're going to break them up, there should have been some compensation for the infrastructure. So I kind of feel, and Apple is not a monopoly because you don't have to buy an Apple device. You don't have to use an Apple device. You don't have to sell your products on the Apple platforms. You don't have to do any of that. So they're not a monopoly in that sense of things. So if you don't like it, don't participate. And so why is this a problem? You have other choices.
What really
I should point it out that these guys have sued Google too. So it's not exclusively Apple.
That's true,
but Apple's the prettier, bigger target.
They haven't gone after Google with the same level of veracity that they've gone after Apple.
Apple is an easier target. They're a bigger target. They're a more they go for sticking its head above the hole kind of target. It's easier to hit them. But
I think what really bothers me the most is that they're chasing after these people or these two companies, calling them a monopoly when there's two companies. It's not a monopoly, but effectively maybe a duopoly. But they're not going after them for a consolidated set of remedies.
Yeah,
which I don't understand.
Me neither. I'm confused. Nothing new.
Oh yeah. Confused, but all right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move us on to our.
You do that.
Thank you.
Just do that.
I'm gonna move us on to our mobile Linux segment. Maybe we'll find some sanity here. First one I think is really kind of an interesting story. I saw over this past week that the Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr. wants everybody some level of wearable, right? To track your health. Now, this is not a bad idea. And since there are many different kinds All
On the
right.
surface,
You
it's
know,
not a bad idea.
no, on the surface, it's not a bad idea. What really sort of bothers me, though, is who's going to pay for it? For those folks that don't have a wearable, who's going to pay for it? All right. Um, am I going to be required to have
Mhm.
one if I'm a Medicare or Medicaid patient?
Yeah.
Right. Um, and then what kind of wearable am I going to be required to have? Especially, I may not be able to afford an iPhone. Am I going to be required to get an Apple Watch? You
Right.
know,
Yeah. Well, but add to
um,
that, Chris. Okay, so you're going to have this wearable. You're going to be required to. Let's say you're Medicare and they require you to wear one.
go
How are
ahead.
you any different than a prisoner required to wear a GPS tracker? Then
And that's true.
how are you any different?
Yeah, that's true.
You're being
Because they do,
punished
because
for
a
it.
lot of them do have GPS trackers to be so you can go
Yeah.
ahead and track your run or your walk or whatever it is and see exactly how far you've gone, where you've gone, what your standard
Yeah.
route is,
Yeah.
blah blah
Yeah.
blah blah blah. And
Blah 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 blah.
if the government
Oh,
has
you're
this
not moving
device,
around enough now. So here you go, or we'll cut
yes,
your
we're
benefits. I
gonna
mean,
increase
that's
your premiums. Thank you,
yeah.
because you're
If
not
it,
moving
I
around
have a
enough.
problem with this on many levels. You know, I
You know,
get the superficial.
on the
People would be
on the
better aware of their
surface, on the
health. I
surface,
get that,
it's great. Let's
but I
have
don't think that's how
everybody
it'll
track
stop. I
their
don't think it'll
health.
stop.
Well,
Right.
let's have everybody track their exercise and their health
Sure.
trends and whether or not they've got AFib going on or
Oh,
track
sure.
their oxygen
But
intake
you know as well
and
as I do, these are slippery slopes, and it almost never holds to the initial intent. Almost
right,
never.
Right.
right.
And the thing is we really honestly don't know what direction they want to go. I
We
mean,
don't.
they, you know, we could be reading things into it.
Absolutely true.
Well,
So
when these
it
things
might
can
just be him just saying maybe we should put out a like a public service announcement that we think these are good ideas, and that's all he
I
wants.
don't get the
maybe, I don't
impression based
know.
on the way he's
Um,
phrased it that that's what he's thinking. But
I think he wants
again, who
everybody to
knows?
have one
I
because
do too.
I mean they can track, your
But
sleep patterns, and they can
yeah,
track your body temperature, your heart rate. The other
but the
thing, though,
problem
that they,
is
aside
the
from the
yeah.
GPS, they can also track a woman's menstrual cycle.
mhm.
So thank you very much for introducing the Handmaid's Tale into, the government.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, and like you
Right.
said, the GPS is a problem. So, okay, now a bunch of people are in a particular location. Are they protesting? Are we going to go arrest people now because we have GPS locations on them just because
On
they're
all
all
of them,
gathered in a
right,
certain
right.
place? All this
Uh-oh.
stuff it leads to
Uh-oh,
so
you've
many
got
possible
10,000
implications.
people in the same
Yeah,
area,
we don't know. I mean, I don't want
that's
to be.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to be doom and gloom because you don't know for sure. But the point is, this is where it can lead. And the problem is, even if they say initially we wouldn't do something like that, odds are really good that eventually
Oh,
they
there's
end up
somebody's
there
going to go
anyway.
ahead. Some at the very very least, some kid's going to somewhere going to go
So are some
ahead and
kids
take
going
a
to hack it
look
and start pulling this data?
and pull this data
It's
in to prove that either
you
they
know,
can or somebody said mentioned somewhere that hey, it would be cool if we could do this, and this guy is thinking he's going to
I
go
mean,
ahead and get
but
himself a
look
leg
at
up
just
in
a
the
little. But look at if you talk about privacy and concerns about that and what
yeah.
can happen, what did happen. Look at the whole issue. Was a year ago, 2 years ago, with the fact that they were using regular flight tracker data to see where Elon Musk's plane was going because they were complaining about him, spending all this money on destroying the environment, basically by using his plane too much. And they were tracking him, and he went and had a complete ballistic meltdown over this
And he
thing.
was
And
entitled
all that
to.
was, and the only thing, but the point is, the only thing they were looking at was public data concerning his plane. What happens now when people are all wearing individual GPS trackers? What
Right.
happens under that circumstance?
Right.
It's potentially
Right.
much worse. So,
Agreed.
don't
I don't
know,
know.
don't know, guys, don't know what the intent is. But regardless of the intent, the scary part is where could it go? Not because the intent, the initial intents always seems
Well, the initial intent, I want
innocuous.
everybody to be cognizant of, their health metrics, right?
Yeah, no, and that always seems reasonable, but that's how we get down these bad slopes in the first place.
Absolutely.
We just want to see the view over the edge of the cliff, Chris. We just want to see the view.
Yeah, well, here you go. Here, let me help you with your view.
Let me help you with that selfie.
Yeah. Say cheese. Yeah.
It always seems to be the way
as
it
you go
goes.
plummeting to the bottom. Yes, thank you. The thing though that bothers me though about all of this stuff is I think the intentions here are good, but
Potentially, yeah, I would agree.
man can even though I think most people are genuinely good. I'm one of those. Not everybody is. All right, most is not
everybody
all.
is.
Most is not all. All right, and there are bad folks out there, and there's somebody.
Yeah.
And one of them works for the government. You know that. Don't know who they are, but one of them works for the government. And the problem is, I see somebody abusing this power because even though with
I do
great
too.
power comes great responsibility, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So I'm just saying
There's just a lot of possibilities here. We have to
there
be very,
are,
very careful.
there are,
So
there are, and so we I don't know. Why don't we move on to something happier?
let's move on to something. Do we have anything happier to talk about?
Not
Not in
really.
this segment, no.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. But apparently though, with the Switch 2, I mean, their carts are slower than micro SD and internal storage, so their cartridges are slower.
They're saying. That's what they're saying, and some people are you know, some people in the community have been confusing the Switch 2 load times with load times off of Blu-ray, which are not comparable. They're not the same media. Yeah, at all. They seem to forget what I've known for since the Atari, that the cartridges are essentially ROM chips, is what they are.
Well, the cartridges are effectively micro SD cards or SD cards themselves.
No,
well, they're solid state devices.
They're solid state. They're solid state
devices
cards
that they incorporate into the system's memory map.
Right, that's different.
So that I mean, and and the new ones might be slightly different than the old ones. But the thing is what this really means is that Nintendo has spec'd lower quality, slower chips in the cartridges. So, I don't know why they would have done that, but it's
what would possess them? I mean, what would possess them to even think
obvious
about
to them. They wanted to drive people to digital downloads.
I was going to say, I have two thoughts. One is that they wanted to keep the cost of the overall device down a little bit. That's probably part of it, and part of it is like Joel just said. We all put. I've got one, and not a Switch 2, but a Switch, a first generation Switch.
So do I.
And I've got a couple of cartridges for it, but I'll be honest with you. Most of the thing I've done software downloads to my micro SD card that I put in the thing.
Sure.
And I've done it that way. So
we're not talking massively, slow load times either. We're talking seconds difference. And you're in the game.
According to the article that we're looking at overclocked 3D.net. All right. For Mario Kart World, if the game is in system memory, it took about 17 seconds to load the game.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
From the game cartridge, it took about 25 seconds.
Right.
All right. So 8 seconds more. From a micro SD express card, it took about 16 seconds.
And once you're in the game, you don't really care.
No. Right. And once after that, I mean, it's all irrelevant. All right. But and then all right. So same game, the race loading from system memory was 6.5 seconds. From a game cartridge was almost 12 seconds, and from a micro SD express card was just over 8 seconds. So between system memory and the micro SD express card, I mean, it's basically there's a 1 second difference. All right, and from the cartridge, there's a 3 to 10 second difference depending on what you're doing. Who cares?
Well, somebody cares.
Somebody cared enough to write an article about it, but to me, it's like it's a meaningless thing for me. As long as the game loads, if I have to wait a couple seconds longer, it doesn't really make a difference to me. I guess some impatient kids can't wait that long. I don't know.
Well,
but
some of this is, I guess, important to those folks that want to either resell or trade or whatever their games, right? They get tired of the game, they played it enough, they want to get something different, they'll trade or sell the game cartridge.
And it's getting harder now to find, even for the regular Switch, it's harder to find actual game carts in stores to buy. Like I went to
that's true.
A lot of them are just cards that you plug in a code and you get the game.
Yeah, it's like you download the game to your device, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
which
Well, that
is
model is cheaper for them. They don't have to manufacture a cartridge, so I
Well,
get it.
not well, and here's one reason you might not
And they
want to do
keep the price the same, by the way,
Well,
guys.
here,
Yeah.
and not to mention the fact, here's one reason that you may want to do that, because at some point the Switch is going to be discontinued, and will your digital download continue to work? When your cart
well, if you've
will
got a
continue to
Switch
work.
2, the Switch 1 will be discontinued. Yes. All
What I'm
right.
saying.
All right. Will
Yeah, well, as
digital
long as you're
download, it
using the same
should.
account, the answer is yes. As long as your account is the same, it should.
Well, and as long as your account is
No, yes and no, because I bought
know.
stuff digital for the Wii, and that stuff don't work no more. So,
But that's a totally different platform. Switch and Switch 2 are
same
not a totally
company,
different
same
platform.
company, different platform.
company,
No, no, no. I see where
different
Joel
platform.
is going with it. And
Right,
he's
but
not
what it
entirely wrong
means is
here.
the authentication systems behind the older systems
Right.
are no longer working, which means your game no longer works. The
True.
game that you paid for, you
Right.
know.
Well,
So
no,
that's why
I'm
I've always
gonna
been a
go and
proponent of that.
throw the same argument at you that Apple or anybody else is going to throw. What you did was you bought a license
Right to
to be
use.
a right to
Yeah.
use. All right, and as long as that platform is available, you have a right to use it.
Yeah,
Platform is no
we've heard
longer
that.
available, and so
Yes,
therefore your right to use
Everybody
is expired.
says that. I know
that's what they say. I
It's all
disagree.
service. We're all services market now. I get it. That's where we
Right.
are.
So
Yeah.
And is that the way it should be? The
No.
one
Yeah.
big
no, it's
reason
not the way
why
that it should be because
no,
back in the day when I bought a book, right?
it's yours
All right.
forever.
As long as the book is still around, which will last for decades and decades and decades, all right, and potentially hundreds of years, in fact. All right,
Until somebody takes it from you and burns it.
until
I mean,
Thank you.
the thing is
happens.
as a
Anarchist
member of the
too.
retro, but as a fan of retro games, the big reason games are so popular and why there's conventions still, where
Right.
where they used to have those computer pro shows, which they no longer have for regular computer stuff, but they still have retro game conventions. They're all over the place. There's always
true.
one or two in Columbus, and that's a huge driver, not just in the retro game space, but in those communities where those things are. Those are huge shows, and when you take the physical media out of it, those shows can just go away. Because there's nothing to have. There nothing else that could be had there except for things that are the physical systems that you can buy.
Sure.
So I mean, so it sucks. I mean, just digital only is not a great solution for retro gamers. Because
for retro gamers, no. All right.
no.
For retro gamers, no. But
future
and
retro
and at some point, 20 years from now, right? When people want to see the version of Mario Kart World that's out now, right? They're not going to be able to play it. It's gone, or they're going to have problems getting it on the platform that they want it on. All right.
Yep.
Who knows?
Yep.
Who knows?
So
definitely a problem.
Well, 20 years from now, I'm not going to care.
Right.
All right.
You're not. We may not be here in 20 years. Who knows?
Well, it could be tomorrow too. You never know.
Right.
The point is that
it depends on when Skynet takes over, Chris.
Thank
That's
you.
all.
Thank you.
Or ChatGPT.
There is that. There is that.
ChatGPT.
And speaking of Skynet,
and feeding the API, the AI overlord.
Yeah. So Meta is starting to feed off your internal camera roll. What's going on?
Well,
Chris?
so we've seen a few articles on this topic now. Meta has apparently done some testing. We're going to call it testing because that's the word they're using. Where they've taken people's private camera rolls that were not published, by the way, and using it to feed their AI. And they claim it's only tests, that it's not publicly rolled out. And theoretically, eventually you'll have the option to opt out. But we've seen them not be completely honest on that front before, too. So who knows?
Why do I have to opt out of shit like this? And what in the bloody hell gives them the right to dip into my camera roll?
You apparently agreed to that
device?
when you agreed to the terms of use for Facebook, kids.
Well,
that's the problem. You did agree to it. You agreed to it when you did it.
I gave them access to my camera roll so that I could post the pictures that I just took, not so that
Sorry, you should have read the fine print.
Fine print. Yeah, I can see the fine print. Here's the fine print for you. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Again, folks, I'm glad you don't have the video feed.
Yeah.
Because he's not being kind to me at
I'm
this point.
not, but I rarely am.
That's very true too.
Yes, it is.
So yeah, this is where they're going with this data. I've seen several articles about this now, and of course they're saying, "Oh, we didn't do this. We're not this." But again,
Well,
we've seen this happen before,
this
and
is like somebody said, all right.
but this time it's your photos. Before
this time,
other things.
God forbid.
Mm-hmm.
God forbid, you've got one of the things that were popular back in the day, and I say this back in the day, it was completely innocent with bathtub photos of your kids. They're playing in the bathtubs. Yeah. There's suds all over the place. Everything is covered, but yet, you got pictures of little faces, right? And they're laughing and having a good time. Nowadays, people think that you're creepy and that you're,
or somehow that was porn.
Yeah,
kiddie porn, and it isn't, but that's the assumption. That's where they start. You have to, and then you have to justify it. Then you're okay. But
right?
It's like, oh, wait a minute.
Well, what really bothers me though is that those are not necessarily pictures that you would want to share not only with the public, but with somebody you didn't know, but the public as well. Why would you want somebody? And this almost feels as though I'm going to ask you if I can steal everything in your bank account. And then you get caught with your hand in the tiller, and then everybody, is up in arms about,
again,
why are you?
I guess I would say if you have pictures like that, why are you uploading them to a cloud service in the first place? Because that will always, again, you're going to put something in the cloud. You really, I don't care whose service you use, but if you put something in the cloud, in my head, I assume that you've given up rights.
Yeah, but the problem here is. It's not that Meta is going into your iCloud account. They're drilling into your device. All right, they're stealing it out of your device. This not necessarily
you upload your stream to them. That's on their servers. Your private stream that you're sharing with other people. Anything you're sharing with you don't have. If you share with a single person, that's not necessarily you're making it public. But as soon as you put it up there for them at all, they're not getting it from your. Well, I take that back. If it's in your Facebook account on your device, that's their software.
If it's in your Facebook account, if it's in an album in your Facebook account, you're screwed. It's fair. They've already got it.
Pretty much. That's what I'm thinking too.
Right.
So I thought maybe I'm misunderstanding this because I'm not a Facebook user anymore. Maybe this has changed. I thought the idea was this is published versus unpublished. You can still have things in your account that are unpublished, correct?
No.
No.
If it's on Facebook, it's published. All right.
Okay, because the assumption was supposed to be that you had private versus public, and the public stuff was published.
All right. So from my perspective, I don't know how many people actually upload something to Facebook and then mark it private so nobody else can see it.
Okay,
all right.
I apologize.
Unless you're trying to do some sort of a OnlyFans kind of thing on Facebook. I don't think that
I don't even think
you do that.
Okay, so here I apologize. Let me reread a section of this for you guys because I did misunderstand it a little bit. This is basically saying that, and this is not just Facebook. This is also Instagram. Any other services that Facebook and Meta own, any of their services, Snapchat, any of the things that they own. It's saying basically when you have their apps on your device, you basically have to give their app permission to see your photos,
your photos,
device.
so that it can go ahead and upload. A lot of people just say let it do it. Yeah, rather than doing selective, which is what they should do, they almost always let it just access their things so they can pick it on the fly when they want to share it, that kind of thing. Right.
And as soon as you've done that, you have not uploaded to their service.
What I thought it was.
But you gave them permission when you agreed to use their app.
Yeah. Well, kiss my ass. All right. I don't. No. Bullshit.
But that's what they're saying.
This is somebody getting caught with their
hands in the cookie jar.
Hands in the cookie jar. All right. This is somebody.
But you agreed to it, whether you realize you agreed to it or not. So kids, read the fine print. If you don't want that, don't download those apps.
They should not be allowed. They have permission to read the contents of my camera roll so that they can pull whatever pictures I want out. But the ones that I select.
That's not what the rules say. The rules say they can pull anything they want to pull.
If that's what the rules say, that's dirty pool. All
I
right.
agree. I totally agree with you. But
That is
that's
dirty
what they're
pool,
doing.
and they're gonna get their
But
hands slapped for that.
Meta's been down this avenue before, where they sold data that theoretically they said they weren't doing publicly, but they did, and Google's been doing it, and all these
I
companies
see a
have done it
class
sooner
action
at some point or
lawsuit
another.
coming from this. I don't care.
I would not be surprised.
I don't care if it's in the fine print or not. Nobody's going to read that fine print.
You got to take you got to take that naked tub picture of your godchildren or your grandchildren out of there. Then.
No,
Right.
I don't have any, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
All right.
That's not. Yeah, it isn't the point of what you have or don't have. It's what they're doing without any permission.
That's what because you have no idea. You have no idea, and you have no control over what they're going to do.
No control. There you go. Congratulations.
Right? And any picture, it doesn't have to be, bathtub pictures of your kids or grandkids.
No, right.
We
use that
whatever
as an example,
picture you've got. It's whatever picture you've got. So
it's like they didn't learn from the fappening back in the day.
No,
thank you.
From when the what that was on the Danger flip top, if I remember.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Oh yeah.
It did.
so
Anyway,
this is any of their services. This is just be aware.
Any of their apps, any of their services. If you are posting pictures, all right, to Facebook,
or not even
Instagram,
posting. If you're using the app at all, and your app has permission to your photos on your device.
Well, the thing is it has to ask for. You have to grant it permission.
Usually, but you do that once when you install it. Usually, and then you're done.
It wants
usually.
access, and if you say,
but there's people that have been using these apps for years.
Gonna get it.
But the point is, there's people that have been using these apps for years who don't realize years ago they gave it permissions to do that.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
They still have those permissions, and people have forgotten. In the old days, you didn't worry about them doing this kind of stuff. But now,
because they weren't that perverted back then.
Well, but now it's also about how can we monetize? How can we monetize? And it's all about that.
They want their AI to get smarter, and they want their AI.
They want their AI to get smarter,
and they are doing that, at your expense.
They really are.
They really are, and
your data is making their AI work, kids.
Your data, your photos are making their AI.
Well, in this
work.
case, it's photos. But they've used other data in the past. We've seen this before, where they've taken other, where you're clicking for your news feeds, where you're all those kinds of, what stories do you watch, what stories do you not watch? They've been tracking that crap and pulling that to feed their AIs and to feed their advertising services, for years. So now they're just doing more. Now they're doing this with your photos. There you go.
Right, yeah. And they've gotten their hands slapped in the past for a couple of those. I have a feeling they're going to go ahead and get their hands slapped yet again. But that's just me.
Well, we're certainly going to see one way or another, aren't we?
I think we are. But what we're not going to see?
What are we not going to see?
We're not going to see the Windows segment exactly right now. What we are going to see is the Windows segment right after this brief message. Hi. This is Christopher Spera from iTechGear.org. I wanted to talk with you today about becoming a contributing donor to the site. iTechGear.org has been around for almost 15 years. In fact, our anniversary is just around the corner on January 10th, 2025. 15 years. Where has the time gone? I've never really asked for any kind of donations for the site. It's always been about me providing value to you, a site visitor or podcast listener. The iTechGear Weekly is now in its 4th year of production, and Chris G., Joel, and Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin and I are having a really great time providing you with some of the best free tech talk available from time-tested original internet writers, testers, site founders, and professional writers and editors on the internet. I truly believe that our crew has some of the best and most qualified pundits and commentators on the internet today. And we're not hobbled by any kind of sponsorship or affiliated relationship or other time-bought posts. It all comes from the heart. Unfortunately, times are kind of tough. And since the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020 to 2023, yes, almost 3 full years, times have become increasingly difficult for small independent sites like iTechGear.org to stay afloat. I normally do this with a portion of the salary I make from the day job. But with the IT market so tight right now. It's really difficult sometimes for many to make normal household ends meet, let alone fund a site like iTechGear that might decide to bring in a buck or two. It ain't easy. If you find any of our content on iTechGear or from ITGW to be of any value at all, I would seriously appreciate you donating as little as just $1 to the cause. While we do have a Patreon site, it's hard to keep one website up, let alone two. And since it's really only me doing the work, our Patreon site hasn't really helped us at all. If you can make a donation to the site or to the show of any amount, I'd be forever grateful. All donations will go to site maintenance, hosting, podcast hosting, and everything iTechGear related. Donations can be made to my PayPal account at chris@itechgear.org. Make a donation. We'll thank you immediately on the next ITGW episode and voice our gratitude. I want to thank you. We appreciate your consideration, time, and attention. Now let's get back to the latest iTechGear Weekly episode. And welcome back to the
I'm never getting through this evening.
Weekly, episode number 137. You made your Memoji do what?
Dude, I gotta celebrate if we
goodness.
survive
And
at the
now
end
we're
of this
gonna
show.
we're going to hell. Anyway,
Oh,
oh dear.
so we're
the
gonna go
episode
and
is
get
going
into
away
the
again?
Windows segment, and
Ugh.
this one I thought was interesting, but only because I don't know. Microsoft is pulling the plug on the original blue screen of death, or BSOD. What's going on here, Joel? And honest to God, I watched this and I listened to this guy talk, and this guy's about as exciting as a vinegar rinse.
Well, there's a better story on the verge here.
Well,
we should put that in the show notes. Microsoft is saying hello to the black screen of death error message instead, but this was, let's see, it's from this year.
Yeah.
So
it is.
what's happening with this? Microsoft is seeing
Simplified BSD looks more like a black screen you'd see during a Windows update, but it will list a stop code, faulty system driver that you wouldn't always see during a crash dump. IT shouldn't need to pull crash dumps off PCs, analyze them with tools like WinDBG just to find out what could be causing issues.
So
It's really an attempt on clarity, providing better information, allowing us and customers to really get what the core of the issue is so we can fix it faster, according to David Weston, Vice President of Enterprise and OS Security at Microsoft.
So your blue screen of death is being replaced by the black screen of death.
Right.
And the black screen of death is supposed to have more usable end-user usable information.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
That's what they're saying.
We'll see. I haven't yet to see it yet, but
I haven't seen it yet either. I would like to, and I've got different versions of the Windows Insider builds on different Windows machines that I've got. The original blue screen of death back from Windows 95 or 98 did have some information, but you were not. I mean, if you were a developer, you might be able to understand some of the stuff that was in those original blue screens.
Let's be honest. Even this more friendly version
of the blue screen
anyway.
Well,
they're not going to understand
do anything
anyway.
for you. I mean, it says your PC ran into a problem that it couldn't handle and it needs to restart. Well, yeah, it's blue and I can't do anything with it. You know.
And the black one's going to be the same thing too. It's like, even if it's more clear to the IT person, your common everyday user, it's not going to be clear for either. Still,
no, I would agree.
Yeah, well, I mean, the article from The Verge has got examples of a Windows 8 based blue screen of death with a frowny face. Right. All right. Yeah. And then the proposed new one for Windows 11, your device has run into a problem and needs to restart. 0% complete or however many percent complete. And then it will provide a stop code on the bottom. It will tell you what file it crapped out in, or what process or system file it crapped out on.
But you know what's funny about that? A lot of times what they'll say is it'll be some obscure DLL name,
Well,
and you don't know what that belongs to.
and you're not going to be right. It won't tell you the app necessarily, or what the app tried to do that caused it to choke. You know,
Yeah. You don't know what it did that caused it to choke. That's the problem.
And that's the problem, because if I knew what it caused it to choke, I might be able to go ahead and avoid that activity, or don't do that. Doctor, it hurts when I do that. Well, don't do that.
No,
right?
Don't do that. Yeah.
Right. Maybe I can avoid the thing entirely and not do that again. You know. So
yeah, that's not going to happen.
Of course, it's not going to happen.
Right.
You know. What? The other thing that bothers me the most. I mean, as long as we're talking Windows, it's this whole thing. Windows 10 is dying this year. Its end of life is this year, October of this year. It reaches end of life. All right, and what really kind of burns me up is that Microsoft still isn't saying goodbye to Windows 10.
Right.
They're trying to get rid of it, but yet they're going to give you what? A year worth of security updates after it dies?
Which is what they used to always do with their servers, and they've been doing this for years.
They did that for XP for 15 years. You know?
Yeah, you got patches for a year. But they weren't charging for the desktop folks the way they are now. And so
Joe, what's going on with Windows 10? I mean, and their security updates?
So you can somehow get them for free, or you can fork over the $30 for a 1-year subscription to Windows 10 extended security updates. But the free one comes with a penalty. So you have to, let's see, where's the free option?
It's here. It's here. Find it.
Use Windows Backup to sync your settings to the cloud, or redeem 1,000 Microsoft Rewards points.
Ooh,
a whole 1,000.
Many people probably don't even know they have.
Probably. What really blows my mind about this whole thing, though, and I really wish, if you're going to make a big deal about an operating system like Windows 10 reaching end of life and it's over, it's done with, it's gone, well, then make it over, done with, and gone. All right? It's one of the reasons why Apple is so successful with the way that they go ahead and handle their end of life for their those PCs are done. Most Macs are left behind, and you either have a choice of running, naked through the forest, or you can buy a new Mac and get on a
there's a little difference here. So all Microsoft has control of is which versions of Windows they support and what hardware underlying they support. And the challenge they've got is they don't manufacture all of that. So it's a little more broadly that they have to speak. So they talk about removing support for such a version of there, but Apple does it kind of the other way. They peel hardware off of their list instead, is what they do. They kind of approach it a little bit differently.
Right. I understand. All right. But so Windows 10 officially dies. There's no more Windows updates, no more feature additions, no more bug fixes, nothing on October 15th of 2025. All right. If you want security updates, which basically means somebody somewhere discovered that there's something that they can go ahead and hack into your system via this app or that app or the other app, or some level of Defender antivirus updates or whatever, you can get those from October 15th through October 13th, 2025 to 2026. All right. So October 15th, 2025 to October 13th, 2026 for either $30 or redeem 1,000 Microsoft reward points, or use Windows Backup to sync your settings to the cloud.
Well, it's actually more than that. It sounds like that's the easiest way to do it, but the idea with that is to get you into their services, right? That's really what they want to do. They want to start selling you disk if they can.
Right. Well, the point though, yes, and Windows Backup uses OneDrive specifically.
And at that point, that would force you to have an account, which some people
at least
still don't want to have.
At least a OneDrive subscription.
Well, you'd have a Microsoft account is what you'd have. And a lot of these people don't want a Microsoft account. You've seen all those workarounds in the last few years for people who want to launch Windows without having to force it down a Microsoft account. Well, this is going to force those people to use the one. So Microsoft does win. They do get something from you for this.
Well, sure. They get $30 or you spend 1,000 points or you buy
you give them your data.
You get a Microsoft account. Right.
Yeah. Pretty much.
The point that I'm making though is, look, stop it. All right. If you're going to bring it to end of life, bring it to end of life and move on.
Be done with it.
And move on.
I'm with you.
All right.
I'm with you.
The amount of people that you're going to get to either get into a Microsoft account after not having a Microsoft account the entire time that they've used Windows 10 is slim to none. They likely don't know that they have 1,000 Microsoft reward points, and they're likely not going to give you $30.
True enough.
Because it's only going to last for a year. And then after that, those stop. Those security updates, all right? Those essential security updates or ESUs will stop, and you're going to be running naked through the floor again,
Mm-hmm.
True enough. Here we go.
Just me.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a pretty common problem right now.
Well,
we have to remember Microsoft's moving everything towards services, everything toward monetization, and these are ways of doing that. I get it. This is all part of that larger picture.
I guess, but I mean,
don't like it, but that's part of the picture.
I don't like it. I don't like it because Microsoft makes enough money.
They do.
And I give them enough of my money. All right.
I agree.
I don't need to give them any more money, and thank God I don't have any PCs running Windows 10.
Which is good because you don't have any money to give them anyway. So just
that's true. Nobody knows. Anyway.
Oh gosh,
I'm going to move us to our tip of the week segment. How about that?
Thank you. I'm good with that.
All right. So, hey, and did you know that iTechGear was founded on the intent of making technology easier for everyone to use and understand?
Were they?
They were. All right. And this team, this august group of guys.
Right, have I met them?
No. No, they don't like you. They don't like you.
That's in 36 days.
Dedicated their writing career to that specific purpose. And every week, therefore, the iTechGear Weekly is going to feature a new computing tip authored by one of our experienced editors. If you've got questions, concerns, comments, requests, suggestions, hey, do me a favor and shoot those over to tips@itechgear.org. And if we go ahead and we mention your contribution on the air, we're going to give you credit for it and give you your.
And we like this. We like when you do this.
Absolutely.
We want you to do this.
So I'm on a roll with Mac tips, and so I'm going to go ahead and stick with that. And did you know that Do Not Disturb is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing. It can really help you focus.
It is.
Without all of the outrageous notifications going off, without your phone going off, without your text messages going off, blah, blah, blah. Did you know that you can, on your Mac, you can quickly activate Do Not Disturb by taking your mouse and going up to the notification center icon in the menu bar and holding down the Option key and giving that old icon a click?
I did not know that.
All right.
I have it in my notification bar area, but I didn't realize you could do that.
If you do that, you'll quickly activate
the Option key, huh?
The Option key.
Okay.
Option click on the notification center icon will turn on Do Not Disturb. It's quick and easy to do and is effective and will keep you undisturbed and focused and pest free until you decide to go ahead and undo it.
Okay.
And that's our tip. Quick, easy, but very valuable if you're using a Mac. All right. I'm going to go ahead, though, and now move us to our pick of the week segment. But before we get there, you guys know the drill. I want to take a moment.
Oh, dear.
And let everybody know that our show picks are typically hardware, software, and other items of interest that we have individually purchased and we actually use, and we like enough that we want to recommend them to you, our growing listener base. These aren't paid advertisements or any items that we have any kind of affiliated marketing relationship with. If they were, the editorial policy over at iTechGear.org indicates that we have to let you guys know that up front. These are just sincerely things that we believe in and we want to bring them all to you guys at the end of our show. Why?
Because
we like you.
And we still didn't get in sync anyway.
Do it. Y'all are killing me.
That was pretty close, though, compared to some.
Go ahead and give us the goods.
All right. So what I have here is a device from Gobi. Now, Gobi, we all know Gobi for the lights and a lot of the home automation stuff. And technically, this is part of that system because it literally uses the same app. But I've come to find out about this device via YouTuber Dan Becker, who's one of the huge high gear reviewers of backpacking gear on YouTube. And what this is a Bluetooth thermometer and hygrometer that runs off a coin cell battery. It's Bluetooth, and it not only will tell you what the current temperature and relative humidity is, but it'll keep track of it too. So, like for example, I had it stuffed. In fact, it's still in my pack. I haven't taken it out yet. In my backpack when I was on the Mammoth March, and it recorded what the temperature was throughout the event.
Nice.
Okay.
As well as the relative humidity. Probably not as useful for an event such as that, since it's a day event and you kind of know it, but it's probably more useful for backpackers that are going out there in remote areas and they need to get a quick check on the temp and the weather to see, well, do I need to take a certain bag with me or something else, just to check on the weather for that matter, so this thing was cheap, $15. And I don't know if that's because it's an old version of it, because they do have a newer version. It's $47, which is still not that bad considering backpacking gear can be god-awful expensive. So, and I think this is just not necessarily something that's made specifically for backpacking, but it's something that's made for your home that's very convenient for those who are backpacking or in the outdoors. So $15 works with your phone, no internet required, and you can find out what the current temperature is where you are, not where the weather station is.
And that's cool.
Okay.
And that's cool.
Yep.
So for $15. Not bad, and they've got them in bundles as well. You can get them in bundles of 1, 2, or 3. Yeah,
and I think the idea that Gobi had with doing this is you can put one in multiple areas of your home, so you can see, well, is Joel's office really hotter than other areas of the house at certain stats? So, and now I have proof. Thank you, honey. In my office during the winter. So anyway, $15 from Gobi. Gobi makes great products. Go ahead and get one.
I get that.
Nice.
So this is nice. And that, kids, is the show. This has been the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 137. You made your Memoji do what? Recorded live Sunday, June 29th, 2025, live from iTechGear Central. For Mr. Chris Gavula, Brother Joe McLaughlin, and the missing Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin, I want to say, hey, we will see you next time.